morning and welcome to the Happiness Economy podcast. I have sound effects, but Jason doesn't want me
No,
to use my sound effects.
nobody wants you to use sound effects, so please do not. Please, because Nicholas has sound effects, but that machine is from Timu. Then you just know you don't want to press, and then the Bluetooth is connected. That's your sound effects. No, completely unnecessary. You're looking like you're glowing there, Nick. You're looking glowy. I don't know what else to say.
I have more light.
Hey?
I have more light.
Oh, more,
I have more light.
and more light equals more reflections. I love that.
More light, more reflection, and I have a new mic because people have been complaining about my mic. That apparently my mic was out, so hopefully this mic now works and sounds.
Listen, it's still not sounding great to me, but to those listening, I hope I at least sound good as usual. Because the same comment that complained about Nicholas's mic said that my mic sounds perfect, crystal clear, and delicious. And please, can we sort out because Nicholas's sounds, and I quote, terrible.
But I don't know what I have a new mic, and now it's still making anyway. These are not the reasons we are here. We wanna have conversations, and hopefully my mic is loud enough so that the guest can hear. How are you?
Bruh, I'm actually I'm a bit sinusy. It's rainy in Johannesburg, and I'm not feeling great. But that I think brings us to why we do this podcast. So if you're listening for the first time, welcome to the Happiness Economy podcast, where Nicholas Goliath and I simply just interrogate happiness. Why is it so important? Why is it so elusive? And as two fairly grumpy, generally a little bit miserable people. We also want you to know that this is not a podcast about pretending. It's about just being honest that, life is hard. It's hard every day, and we're just trying to get through it in the best possible way and trying to figure it out. I think we spend a lot of time on our financial economies, but not enough time on our mental health economies, and that's why today is an extra exciting day. Nick, how are you?
I'm good. I just realized I have two little red spots.
A lot going on your face today, my friend.
No, I don't know what's happening. So I'm on medication for my skin because I've got like skin issues, and my skin's been extremely dry. And so now I don't know what's going on here. Like there's a little bump here, and then there's two. And it looks like I got hit with something on the forehead. But anyway, I'm good and I'm excited. Our guest today is Norwyn K. He's a brother I met. Yes, must be close to 10 years ago. At a dinner, a gentleman's dinner, is what it was. We were just trying to. I can't even remember fully what it was about, but I know that Norwyn and I we stayed in contact a little bit and come to the club. And now I'm very excited because, like you were saying, he's a coach, a happiness coach, which is very exciting.
So the guy's a happiness coach. He's a mental wellness speaker. Does a lot of coaching with businesses and important individuals, and obviously public speaking. So right up our alley. And I don't think we should waste any more time. Nick, introduce the guy without pressing any sound effects, please. I will make sound effects for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Happiness Economy podcast. It's the one and only Norwyn K.
I love it.
I should have said mental wellness expert that looks like a magician.
You know what? A funny story though. There's a little backstory here. A lot of people think I used to look like Danny K. So back in the day, people called me Danny K, and I kind of just went with it. And even up till today, me and Danny K did a little collab once where we were in a video together. It was so fun. But gentlemen, thank you guys so much. I love the sound, Jace. That was fantastic. Love it. And I gotta say, Nick, you gotta drop the skincare routine, my brother, because you are looking just glowing, and we just need to know how do we get there?
Don't flirt with me. Don't flirt with me over the online. But thank you. I appreciate it. No, and I have to stay on it. And also, just in line with your Danny K story, I have a Brian Banner story. Where people have confused me with Brian Banner, and then I have a joke where I talk about how I look like Brian Banner. And I recently did an event where I actually replaced Jason And Brian Urbana was at the event, and I got to tell the joke in front of him.
Oh
And
my
it's
gosh.
like, you guys look like brothers, but then when you see us next to each other, not at all.
I see it now. Now that you
No,
say
you
it, I
don't.
see it.
I promise you, the gag that Nicholas does describes how he has generic colored face, where he just looks generically like just about. Because they also say he looks like Ruben Ruffle. Don't see that.
Yeah.
And they also say he looks like Trevor Noah. And funny story, Nick and I were in at a big comedy festival in Canada, and we got
Yeah.
access to many things we shouldn't have been granted access to because people thought
Oh,
that Nicholas
really?
was Trevor Noah. So we also choose when to correct people and when not to correct.
And at no point, Nick, did you stop it and
No,
do the
he
right thing and say,
posed.
I'm actually not
He
Trevor Noah,
posed for
you
those
know.
selfies, my friend.
You know how many selfies I am in where people are showing their families right now. Look, this is a picture of me and Trevor Noah. And they're like, no, that's not Trevor Noah. And I'm wearing a Goliath t-shirt on top of it, which makes it even better. Like Trevor's sponsoring
I
or
love it.
representing us out in the
So,
world.
Norwyn, of course, first, thank you for joining us. Thank you for reaching out, and we always excited, to meet people that are also just kind of not only mental health focused, but just trying to unpack this mystery that is happiness. So let's understand you, what you do with, what your angle is, and please teach us.
Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, for both having me on the show. It's such an honor. And yeah, we do go way back, as Nick was saying. We met 10 years ago. The conference was called the Legacy of the Gentleman's Legacy event, or something like that, Nick.
It was like the legacy of true beauty, I think was the ladies' event. And it was
Yes,
woman's legacy of something.
100%. And after that, yeah, we did stay in touch. And at the time, I'd written my first book, and now I'm on my fourth one. So a lot has happened in the span of 10 years or so. But look, I'm a lot of things. It's hard to sort of pinpoint exactly what I do because I do so many things. But I'm a happiness therapist. Now, I think it's important before we even move further. I love how you position happiness, Jason, right at the beginning, because it is not a linear approach. It is not a how to, a hack, a guide, a 5-step plan, a
A
secret,
tablet.
all of those things. 100%. And I think that's a mistake, unfortunately, a lot of people make. Because when they think of the word happiness, in fact, I'm going to throw this to you, both of you. When you think of that word, what comes into your mind? Like, what's the stuff that pops into your head when you think happiness?
So I think for me, it's changed since Jason and I have been on this journey. Like I think in the beginning it would have been a full bank account, paid off car, paid off house, living the high life, doing all the nice things that we see on social media. But I think for me now it's changed to just peace. I just want peace in my life. So a bank account doesn't need to be excessively full. I need the basics in my life. I need a car that's not the most amazing car, but it's a functional car, something that makes me happy. And I just want like peace is the thing. I don't know how to even explain that peace is the thing that brings me joy. When I know that my life is not sorted, because there's always going to be stumbling blocks and little challenges that we have to get through. But we I know that when those challenges arise, I can easily tackle those challenges because the rest of my life is sorted and full. So yeah, I think that's my answer.
I think we were racing to get in there because because we've been on this journey together. I think our answers have become very similar, and peace has definitely been the big word. Um, but I think it's defined in my mind of constantly being in a state of being sure that everything is going to be okay. And I think that it's such a tricky thing to answer, which is why so many of us have difficulty with the subject. So what I will say is what we've learned is it doesn't exist the way we expected it to. It only exists in the now. It only exists where my feet are right now. There's no such thing as I'm going to be happy when. You know what I mean? You got to kind of find your happiness right now, and you got to find your peace in faith. I think is a word I want to use, and faith literally to me just means everything's going to be okay. And what that means, if I'm going to say everything is going to be okay, that no matter what is happening, that's the right thing, and being able to lean in and trust that. peace also just making sure that you're surrounded by the right people. And peace is something that you can feel. I think you can feel that, a comfort that is void of anxiety, the void of stress. Those things are always going to be there. But I think when you think peace, when you put your head down at night, you're okay. I always say that COVID was a great gift for me in the sense that it cured me of the disease of more. I think pre COVID I was like everybody else in the rat race, just wanting to get bigger this, more that, flashier that. Um, and you kind of then stop looking at what everybody else wants, what everybody else thinks you should have, and
Yeah.
kind of figure out, what do you want. What type of story are you trying to tell. So yeah, I hope that, I don't even know if that answered in any way.
Oh, look, both of you had beautiful answers, and I think the point of the observation to what you both just said, which is absolutely correct, is that the now that you're speaking about, right? There's no prescription to that. There is no how to. There's no 5-step plan. There is no follow this 5 steps and do these 10 things every day. Because if we use intermediaries in the pursuit of happiness, we have missed the plot altogether. And it's unfortunate, though, that in our culture, in our society, and all the gurus out there, and the books, and the seminars, and the courses, it is all about do X if you want happiness, do Y if you want peace. And this is the most ineffective way to understand what the truth of happiness is. So I was going to preposition this by saying that this show is not going to be about me being giving you a magical 5-step plan for your audience, and if you do
Damn it.
these certain 10 things, yeah, I know, like you will find happiness.
You are actually interviewing us on our own podcast. Like, I'm waiting for the next question from you to hear.
I'm just so fascinated by the observations of how people view it, because I think how they view it dictates how they approach it. And unfortunately, because we live in a culture and a society where everything we want is predicated on we need to do something to get there, that becomes a problem. So when it comes to me,
Yeah.
as a happiness therapist, I don't teach people how to be happy. I don't show people how to be happy. But what I enjoy doing is exploring with someone what are the roadblocks that are preventing you from finding this thing called happiness that you want. So, for example, I don't have the answer to Nick's happiness, to Jason's happiness, but what I can have an understanding of is let's explore what are the possible things that are preventing you from being there in the first place, wherever there might be. So there's no prescription to that. There's no guide to that. There's no how to that. I think that the conversation around happiness, especially, um, it's a very disingenuous conversation in our culture, and it's not the fault of any
Yeah.
person. I just think it's how we've been conditioned into understanding this elusive thing. Because you said this, Jace, it's such an elusive thing. I mean, let's be honest. We have sent people to the moon. Like we have done some incredible things as human beings. If we are so smart and intelligent, how come we can't be happy? I mean, this is look at the evidence, right?
Facts.
If you walk into exclusive books, there are thousands of books on how to be
Yeah.
happy. There are thousands of books of business and how to, succeed in
Yeah.
business. So based on the evidence, there should be more successful people. There should be more happy people. But the evidence doesn't show
Yeah.
that. In fact, it's the opposite. You guys know this because you guys are also in this space. There's a lot more unhappy, anxious, depressed people out there than ever before.
Absolutely.
So I think we've been just looking at it in the wrong way, and I think we can unpack that as we get into the show. But I just wanted to
No, so
sort of-
I'm dying to unpack it. I think the thing that struck me that you said already is, instead of focusing, and I think Nicholas and I are guilty of being obsessed on, figuring out what do you want, what makes you happy, what do you want, what makes you happy, and what you've just said is possibly start with what's in your way. So instead of looking to what you think makes you happy, maybe start with what's making you unhappy. Maybe start with what's currently in your life that's disrupting your peace. So in the search for peace, look at where there's no peace. Is that?
it's a good question and there's two parts to that question. So if I say I want to be happy, the first part is going down this rabbit hole of 10 million things to do or to try or books to read or gurus to listen to. Because listen, everybody has a solution, right? Everybody has a way in order to be
Yeah.
happy. Now, that is the most ineffective path because you don't have enough time in your life to try every 75,000 things in order to hopefully one of them produce happiness. We just don't have enough time. But the other path, which I think is the most effective path, is to understand what are the roadblocks that might be actually preventing me. Because that is an internal introspection. That is something that is easily to identify. But if you go down the other path, which is, well, I'm going to read every book on happiness, I'm going to listen to every single happiness person and guru out there in every podcast, you just don't have time. And are you willing to risk that none of those things are true? I mean, if you are, then fair play. But I know I'm not. So I would rather start with what is most accessible to me, which is I know what's preventing me. Let me start there.
In identifying, because I think that's the main problem, is that a lot of people don't even know how to identify what it is that's making them unhappy. Like especially if you look at, let's say, a relationship. Like if you and your partner are not working in a relationship, your partner is making you unhappy, I feel like it's a very difficult thing to be able to go, oh, it's because of you, or it's because of our situation that I'm unhappy. So then you start, I think you start finding other things to, so that you avoid the confrontation with your partner. So then how do we find those difficult things to find? Because it's easy to go, oh, I'm unemployed, that's why I'm unhappy, that's why I need to get a job. That's a simple thing. But like when it comes to relationships or sensitive topics, or things where, like, if I go, oh, I'm so terrible with managing my money, that's why I'm unhappy. um it becomes one of those difficult things to face. So how do you suggest we work around that?
Okay, well, let's look at relationships. I think this is a big one, and this is an important one for most people. In fact, most people's unhappiness comes from being unhappy in relationships, whether it's romantic or with your family or at work or whatever the case is. I think we have to look at what is the underlying truth when it comes to all forms of relationships, or especially the word love. I think love is a misunderstood concept. I think it is incomplete in how we view this word because love is nothing more than expectation and need. This is how most of society views what love is. Because if you guys think about it, you cannot claim to love someone one day and if they piss you off the next day, withdraw that love. Then that was not love, that was need. If you truly love someone, even if they left you tomorrow, that love should be, I'm not saying you're going to be happy about it, but you will still have love for the person because it was sincere. But
Absolutely
if
agree.
you withdraw that, yeah, it just means that you just had a need from the other person that, or an expectation from them that you were masking as this thing called love. And I think this is why a lot of relationships actually fail these days, is because we think we understand what love is, but as soon as we are faced with the truth of that, then it all falls apart. So I think it's about expectation or insistency or need. All of those three words I found through my many, many years of observation and experimentation and examination in this field, those three words are some of the biggest reasons as to why we do not arrive at freedom or peace or happiness or joy, because we all have this embedded expectation of how life should be. And big or small, all of us have it because all of us grew up in a culture, in a society, and in family, and different environments where that was part of how we did things. And so, I feel for me, expectation is probably one of the biggest things, and I speak about this a lot in my work and in my talks and in my book. It's one of the biggest things, or the biggest truths about why happiness isn't found, because we have an expectation for things to be how we want them to be versus how they are. And I found that the greater the disparity between those two things, the bigger the gap, the more pain we will have and the more suffering we will have.
And we've spoken about moving expectations.
Yeah, it that's such a powerful statement and analogy, and also like the breakdown of love, which I've never thought about it like that before. Need and expectation. What about the relationship with yourself? The expectations from yourself. How important is that?
Well, look, that's a fantastic question, and I think it's the most important one because life is a single player game, whether we like it or not. It's there will be people that come around us, there will be people that get to experience life with us, but ultimately, it is a single player game, and the relationship with oneself is, I think, the only thing that matters. Because, Jace, I'll give you, I'll burn a sacred cow for you and the audience here today. Okay, there is no such thing as conflict. There is only something called self conflict. There is no conflict with another person. It is all self conflict that is projected in terms of other people. So let me give you an example of this. No person, situation, or circumstance causes you pain or suffering. All they do, person, situation, or circumstance, all they do is reveal a pain that already existed within you that you have not understood yet. The self conflict was already there within you as the individual. That person who said that thing, or when COVID happened, or when your boss fired you, whatever the case is, they've just shone a light, excuse me, on a part of you that hasn't understood itself yet. Um, I'll give you guys another example of this. If I called both of you something silly like I said, Jace, Nick, you are such a lip ice, something silly
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'd be like, yes, I am.
Um,
We.
well, that's exactly right. You guys are not going to feel offended by that because this means nothing to you. Okay. But let's say hypothetically, I said to you, Nicholas, Jason, you guys are so lazy. You're not good at what you do. Nobody likes you. Your family doesn't like you. Now that might sting just a little bit
Yeah.
more. But the only reason why that might sting is because somewhere deep down inside, there's a very small part of you that is beginning to entertain the idea that what I said could be true. Because when I called you this, no part of you believed you were a lip ice, therefore there was nothing to feel offended by. But if I said that you were lazy and a small part of you got upset about it, it's because there's a little voice inside of you that's saying, what if I am a bit lazy? What if I could do a little bit more? What if I could be a better parent?
I'm not gonna lie. When I was at the place, I looked at the shiny spot here on my head. I was like,
No, 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 Nick. You wish you were a I'm back, my brother. I want to just because English has become such a powerful thing for me, and just in terms of words and the way we interpret to ourselves, the way we understand. So when you go, there is no such thing as conflict, only self conflict. My brain goes, yeah, but there is conflict. Nicholas does boxing, and when somebody punches his face, that pain didn't exist before the punch on the face. Then I go, no, Jason, you're being too literal. Obviously, physical is different, but I feel like it's dangerous to, because we speak often about the 5% rule. Life is 5% what happened, 95% how you respond. That's in terms of taking offense. And I agree that when you take offense, that would be inherently self-conflict. So something that you hadn't dealt with, somebody saying to you, you're a lip ice, Nicholas looking at himself going, oh yeah, I'm reflecting. That's, you know what I mean? Because it's ridiculous. You're pouring you a lip ice, you're obviously not a lip ice. You, the way you feel about that is taking offense. But I can't get my head around all conflict is self conflict, because I think that there is conflict. I think that because everybody's going through something, and I think that if you live in Joburg, just go out on the roads and you'll see conflict. You minding your business, somebody's trying to attack you. That's not in my head. You know what I mean? Robots are out. Everybody's, this rainy weather. There's potholes. There's frustration. So that I agree that taking offense is up to me, but surely conflict can't only be up to me.
Sure. So I'll answer that for you. That's a great sort of observation. I'll give you this in terms of loneliness, for example. So I deal a lot with male loneliness because, as we all know, and I'm sure you guys know this, the epidemic of male loneliness is a very big thing. The reason why loneliness happens is not because someone can't find someone. It's actually because that person always believed that they would never be alone to begin with. there was an imbibed, embedded expectation for how their life should be. So, Jason, your example, you go out in outside the door and you're stuck in traffic. You see potholes everywhere. Things are not safe. Okay, these are all absolutely true. The only thing is that the reason why we look at that as conflict is because there's a part of us that has already imbibed that things should not
No,
be
no, no,
that
no, no. So
way.
I'm
And
not
when
saying,
they
I'm not saying,
are,
sorry to break your word. I'm not
yeah,
saying that I'm frustrated when I go out. I'm saying people in
yeah,
Joburg are frustrated generally because of all of these factors. So I'm saying road rage, for
sure.
example, is a thing. So for me to believe that all conflict is self-conflict, I'm saying, what about the guy that attacks me on the road because I didn't see that this robot is, because nowadays we have problems we never had before. Now I find myself driving through red robots because I'm so used to robots being out of order,
Yeah.
and now I have somebody chasing me down, following me. You know what I mean? But trying to create conflict. So I'm just saying that from the English of it is my brain is not settled with the fact that all conflict can be self-conflict. I believe that all offense can be self-offense, but I don't believe that all conflict can be self-conflict. I don't know if that makes it clearer what I'm trying to get to, but it's about a third party coming at me. Yeah.
100%. And again, and I agree with you, you're right about that. And a part of us is we don't think these things would happen to us. Like, we don't expect somebody to cut us off and follow us and like get
Mm,
road rage
mm,
and stuff
mm.
like that. This is just cause and effect. But when after the event, some of us, and I know do this sometimes too, is I'll go home and I'll be like, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? And like, you'll start blaming things, and then the whole narrative goes on in your head about, is it because I did this and I'm not a good person, and I'm like, God hates me, universe hates me, all these kind of conversations start to happen. And those things start to create sort of an internal conflict within us, whereby it could just be this random guy cut this person off. It just so happened to be you, and that's just cause and effect. But sometimes what we end up doing is now we'll go back and sort of continue that storyline that doesn't exist, but we'll make it into something that it doesn't.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't sort of happen. But your point is absolutely valid though. Like,
Can I tell you a story that happened to
yeah,
me yesterday? So I was going to a gig, and I was driving on a road in at Melrose Arch where the road curves. So there's two lanes going around the bend, and I'm in the left lane, there's a guy in the right lane, and as we go around the bend, he just drifts slowly into the left lane, changes lanes, no indicator. We're basically next to each other, so he almost hits me. And I slow down because I see him coming, and I come around to the right lane and I hoot at him. And as I turn to go, dude, what the hell? I don't realize that the curve is still going and there's like a soft pavement. So I hit the pavement a little bit in my car. Then I turn and I look, and the driver and his two friends are here. Dying of laughter because it was that instant karma moment where I turned to engage with them and I hit the curb and they burst out
awesome.
laughing. And in that moment, I realized, firstly, I've been practicing this technique of not even engaging. Don't look at the driver.
Mm.
Don't do anything, no matter what they've done to me. Just ignore them, carry on with my life. Because the minute I turn, it gives them an opportunity to say something, to do something, to show me a hand signal, something that's going to make me angry. So I rather just drive past. But in that moment, I was having a bad day. And I was like, I need to tell this guy nonsense. And I turned. And then when I hit the curb, luckily it was a soft, gentle hit. There's no damage to my car. But I looked at those guys laughing. The driver stuck his hand out the window going, yeah, what now? And in that moment, I just had to laugh and go, yeah, I'm that guy. I'm the asshole who got instant karma. I'm gonna be, if there's CCTV footage, they are going to play that CCTV footage in the world.
I love that story.
No, I
I love
love
it.
that because that's very Nicholas and very Jason. That whole moment is very us. But I think that we've been speaking about the 5% rule.
Yeah.
5% what happens, 95% how you react. And I think the reason I'm harping on this is because I think that you've just unlocked something for me.
Mm.
So we speak about the fact that the more in control you are, and we speak about it under the banner of perspective.
Mm.
And we believe that, the greater you are able to have perspective of, not everything is about you, not everything is attacking you, and most of those things are within you. And I agree with you there, that kind of self conflict is absolutely true. But I think what we haven't unpacked is, it's easy to understand the rule, it's easy to speak the rule, but that 95% is the part that is the self conflict.
Yeah.
Your ability to respond in a certain way is going to be reflective of how you feel, what you have dealt with, what you haven't dealt with, what you're currently dealing with, what you're currently going through. And I think that therein lies the very important part. So it's one thing to understand perspective is one of the great keys to enjoying a more peaceful life, but achieving that perspective means you've got to deal with things that affect your 95% and the way you respond to things. So I think that is very, very interesting right there.
You are right, and it is a game of perspective, but it's a game of understanding. I think more importantly for me, I don't think anything is about what you specifically need to do. I think it is all about what is it that you have yet to understand about this situation that is causing you pain or suffering or whatever the case is. So there's a lot of examples of this where people ask for a way to be happy or a way to have peace or a way to have joy or whatever the case is, anything that you want. And I think that what I've seen is that, again, you can give someone a 10-step plan, but it won't work. In fact, I will say this. Both of you are very successful at what you do. You've been successful for many, many years, and may you be for many, many years to come. But if both of you had to write down how you think you got where you were and then go back and do the exact same thing, you wouldn't get to where you are now. 100% you wouldn't.
Okay, explain that.
It is not about a black and white, you did X, Y, Z, therefore you are successful. It is all about the things that are not transmissible. It's the gray area. It's the little things that cannot be prescriptionized. It is the desire. Those things cannot be prescriptionized or put into a 5-step plan or put into a how-to guide. And yet that is all that is thrown upon us when it comes to the ideas of happiness and freedom and joys. If you do X, you will get Y. And that just isn't the case, unfortunately. You almost have to jump into the soup. You have to jump into the deep end and figure it out. Because the only reason I can tell you now, the both of you, why you are where you are, is not because you followed someone else's 10 steps or you followed a book. It's because you desired to be something or to be somewhere. It was in your DNA. And no matter how you got there,
It was the desire and the combination of an ancient colored proverb, Dala, what you must. You can't just desire, you
there
must
you go.
Dala. Desire and Dala.
I like that. That needs to be branded on a T-shirt or something like that.
Come
But
on.
Sorry to cut you. I was very curious as to how you got onto the journey of happiness and became this person that you are.
Sure. So this started almost 14 years ago, when the death of my sister. So my sister was murdered about 14 years ago. And of course, that was a very traumatic experience for me. And it was something that you didn't really hear about too often because social media wasn't really around back then. So it was a very disturbing thing for me. And I was very close with my sister. So we were best friends. And so it was very difficult for me. Afterwards, I didn't really know how to sort of deal with the loss and the grief because I don't know about any of you and anybody in the audience, but did any of you go to how to deal with grief class in school? Probably not. Nobody went to how to understand the loss of a loved one class in school. So I was trying to I was trying to figure this out. It was difficult, and along the way, there would be a lot more hardships. I had a rare degenerative eye disease, which left me almost blind in my right eye. So I have hardly any vision in this right eye. And all of these things were happening because it was an exposure to a prerequisite environment, and that exposure has side effects. So for me, it was stress, it was anxiety, it was depression. I was living in that soup of anxiety and depression and stress for a long time. And the side effect of being exposed to a prerequisite environment is you will go through illnesses. And that's kind of what happened to me. So, all of this was happening, and I was really struggling to figure it out. Now, by the way, I had read all the books. I had read all the books on happiness. I went to psychology, psychotherapy. I'd done all the courses and the seminars and the gurus and all those kind of things. And what I found is that all these things are a temporary fix, but they do not cure the problem. So if anybody comes to me and says, Norwyn, but when I go do X, or when I go run outside, when I go to the gym, I feel good, and that's fantastic. I'll never take that away from you. But the question I will ask is, does that solve the core of the problem, or is that a band-aid that while you're doing it, you forget, and then you have to come back and deal with what you have to deal with? And so I realized that this approach was not working, because I tried all these things to feel better. And I had to sort of I had this understanding that maybe I'm looking in the wrong path, maybe I'm looking at the wrong place. And I went on this internal exploration, which, by the way, took me many, many years to truly understand and figure out. But that internal exploration, I started to look for the patterns. I started to look for what is the truth behind things like happiness and freedom, and all the things that we want: joy, peace. What is the actual truth? What is it that I've been told, and is this actually true? And along that journey, I started to make these observations, and then I started to work with people and understand, what people were going through, and like, does this make sense? Is this true? And that's kind of how I then started going and really sort of deep diving into these topics, and writing about this and speaking about this, and just kind of how we got to where we are now. So it started, to get back to your question, Nick. It started with my own trauma and tragedy, and the realization that all the things that the auspice of our society has dawned upon us to work doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, I have no interest in that. I want to know what works, what is the truth. And that's kind of how I went on that journey.
Right. Firstly, I mean, I'm still that's one of those pains that they say that doesn't go away. You just kind of learn to live with it. Something that I've got hardly any experience to be able to even assimilate and understand what you've been through. But it makes perfect sense to me that one would start seeking out the light when you are overwhelmed with darkness. And I gotta admire the pursuit, but more than that, the sharing of the findings, I think is just so important. I think, you've been doing this for very long. We started this podcast more for ourselves, if we're honest, just because I think we were confused, and we thought that the easiest way was just to speak to people who we thought were happy, and it's been an amazing journey for us so far. But something that's been very loud for me is, and I think loud for Nick as well, is that we say a lot of stuff just for us, and I think it's very important for us not just to say things, but to live things. So, like, in my mind, Nicholas will tell you how, if you want to make me angry, phone me and tell me you've got a business opportunity for me that you can't discuss over the phone. And you really have to see me face to face. And when I finally give you some of my time, you come and draw a quadrant. And start telling me about Amway. And then Nicholas will tell you immediately, excuse my French, I like, get the fuck out of my house. Immediately I swear at people. Because if you couldn't tell me about this thing over the phone, you're wasting my time. And that generally comes from, there's someone coming into my home telling me that they're gonna make me so successful, but this bastard pulled up in a Taz that's leaking oil. He's clearly got no money, but he's coming to tell me about how much money I'm potentially gonna make. And then I'm always like, because he's always telling me about, there's this oak in the group that drives a Ferrari, and the boss drives this. And then I'm like, yeah, but why is that guy not here? What are you doing here? Clearly, you know what I mean? And I think, because I'm so against that, and it annoys me, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, is I don't want to be that guy. So I'm not trying to be out here trying to just pretend to sell happiness, because that's not what we do. But I think that it's so easy for people to go, but are you happy? And I often think about what is my answer to that. If I'm going to put on paper that I'm a happiness coach, like I read on your bio, I think it says the what is it, happiness coach, happiness advisor. What do you? I'm actually going to read it. Wait, I'm going to read it. I got it here. I've got it right here. Um, Yes, a happiness therapist. So that for me is the same as us doing a podcast called The Happiness Economy, a comedy show called The Happiness Economy. Is the natural question then is, are you happy, and is all of the stuff that you're talking about reflective in your life? How do you answer that question?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. And the thing about me in terms of what I do, and as I said this at the beginning, I am not someone that tells you how to be happy, because I, for one, I will tell you that now this is going to burn another sacred cow, but I don't think happiness is what we all think it is. So I will say no to that. Honestly speaking, I'm going to say no to that. And the reason why I say no to that is because I think happiness lives on a spectrum where how we view it right now, when things are good, if things are in perfect sequential order in our lives, then we allow ourselves to be quote unquote happy. But if things burn away and everything falls apart tomorrow, then we are going to be miserable and unhappy and sad. And for me, that is the most ins- uh, not stable way to live life at all. It is completely predicated on situations, circumstances, and other things going in your favor. Then I'll be happy. But as soon as that they're not, then you're not. For me, that's an emotional roller coaster, and it doesn't work. So the answer to that is no. But what's important is that I'm not teaching anyone how to be happy. What I am doing is exploring the reasons as to why potentially you are not. That I can help you explore, that we can sort of understand, that I can speak the truth about, that we can look into a very deep level. What are the roadblocks? What are the expectations that you have been imbibed with all your life that might be preventing you from finding this magical, elusive place? These are things that I share a perspective on. But it is definitely not, well, guys, if you do these 10 steps, then you will be happy in the next 30 days. And, yeah, all these, yeah, let me tell you why I love your guys' show. Is because what you offer, and you said this, Jace, is that it's a sincere, honest conversation around this thing called
Yeah.
happiness. But it is not, well, every guest we get, share your 10 steps, and the next one is share your 5. And those are disingenuous conversations to me. And this is why I appreciate what you guys do, because it is real.
No, and I think the biggest thing I took out of what you just said now, and is that you've got to do the work, because I think that a lot of time people are not willing to do the work. We have this expectation that, like you were saying, I call it the aspirational happiness. When I get the new car, the new job, the new house, the new whatever, the bigger, the better, then I'm going to be happy. And they're not willing to put in the work to go through the process of finding out what are the problems, why am I not happy. You're just looking for the things that in your mind you believe are going to make you happy. And I feel like at the time that we're living in now as well, those things are based off of social media, off of what we're seeing in the world, not self-reflection and going, what actually makes me, Nicholas, happy? Do I
And it's
enjoy
difficult,
going
right,
to the
Nick?
gym?
Because you're right. It's very difficult, because what if it's your wife or your husband or your job? I mean, these are difficult conversations, and this is why people sort of shy away from them, because these are type of the honest conversations that the mind doesn't want to have, because everyone's mind wants to keep the status quo. It doesn't want to disrupt what it's believed all its life. So it's 100%.
Do the work. That's what we're saying to you. Find the issues in your life and then do the work. I think that
It's also avoid the energy drink solutions where you're gonna feel good for a little bit and then have an even lower dip, which I think you've kind of insinuated in a number of ways there, Norwyn. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that the work is never going to stop. There's no, because I really just am frustrated by the fact that we were all, not all, but a lot of us were raised to believe and had this fairy tale idea that one day you're just going to be happy forever. One day all your problems are just going to stop. One day everything's just going to be okay forever. And then, as you get older, you realize that, it's never going to be okay. Actually, if I'm honest, it's never going to be okay. It's going to be cuck forever, and it's only going to be as good as I'm willing to make it every single day. So every day I've got to wake up and choose to make it as good as possible, because it's going to be cuck forever. That's what the fairy tale on this should be. The Prince Charming on the horse should be arriving, going, "Is it still cuck? Yes, it is. You know why? It's going to be cuck forever. Of course, it's still cuck."
Prince Charming needs to go. The horse needs new shoes. The horse needs to be fed. Who's going to feed the horse? Who's going to walk the horse? Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because if I click my fingers and I took away all your problems right now, and everyone who's listening in, let's just pretend I click my fingers and I've taken away all your problems, and not only that, I'm going to send you all to a 3-week vacation island, a beautiful island resort
Leaves,
somewhere,
baby.
with nothing to worry about. Let me tell you what's going to happen. On the first few days, it's going to be paradise. You're going to love, because remember, you have no problems. I have taken them away from you. But on the third or fourth day, as you are sipping mimosas on the beachfront, your mind will begin to create problems that don't even exist. Because this is how the mind is. The mind is always hardwired in this way. So, to your
Mind is an
point,
asshole.
yeah, exactly. The mind is an asshole, and to your point, it's never going to be okay. Everything is in a state of decay. Everything is going to come to an end. And if we do not understand that viscerally, if we do not come to the realization of that truth, then everything becomes painful, because we will hold on to these things as if they should always be there, as if life should make sense once I become successful and rich and wealthy and marry the right person. And it doesn't work, because life isn't those ways. And so this goes back to my point about expectation, insistency, need. Look, I'll share with you something that it's taken me many, many years to understand, and that's in regards to losing my sister and why I suffered so much. I always thought that my greatest pain in life was the fact that my sister died. And I will share with you both that it actually wasn't. The greatest pain in my life was the fact that I thought it should have never happened in the first place. I had this belief that my sister would always be around. I had this belief that she would want, like, our kids would grow up one day, and we'd have a big happy family, like her kids, my kids, like we have this big, like, I always had this expectation of how life should be. And I realized that that was my pain, that was my suffering, that was preventing me from finding my freedom. It's the insistency or the expectation that I had for how things should be. And when that became so clear to me, that's when I began walking down a path of truth, where I started seeing things for what they are, and this ideas of happiness and joy and peace and freedom. What's the truth behind those things? And that's kind of like, I know, sorry, I was talking for a long time there, but just to your point, I mean, that's kind of what I found is way more truthful than saying, well, if you meditate 10 minutes a day and say nice things to yourself in the mirror. And my favorite one is high five yourself in the mirror. Oh, don't get me started on that. But yeah, no, those things don't work, unfortunately.
I love that very much. I think, firstly, thank you for being honest. I think that too many of us are under pressure to create our own perceptions and manipulate people's perspectives and sell rather than solve. You know what I mean? So thank you for not trying to sell. I appreciate that very much. Um, as usual, I wish we had more time. But I just want to bounce off you. So I agree that there's no formula, there's no thing that you can no tablet you can take to fix it. But through the episodes, what we have doubled down on is identifying things that you can add and help you find your peace, help you make the right decisions, help you choose your happiness, and help you choose the better version of your day. So we speak about GAP as in gratitude, acceptance, and perspective. And what we've been trying to figure out is, because it's very inconsistent, my moods are very inconsistent. I wake up one morning and it's easy to find gratitude. I wake up the next morning with no gratitude at all. I wake up one morning and it's easy to have a good perspective on life. I wake up the next morning and there isn't. I wake up one morning and I accept all the things that have happened to me. I wake up the next morning and I'm angry. Why have these things happened? And I love that acceptance and expectation, kind of, there's a beautiful link there. But there may not be a formula, but I think that, our journey was, is there a way of having something that you can have close to you? And GAP has really worked for me. It's really worked for us, just in terms of being clear on what your gratitude is and creating habits that reinforce gratitude and help you think about your gratitude all the time. Acceptance being, to manage your expectations, you first got to accept who you are, where you are, what you are, why you are where you are. And perspective speaks to what you called self-conflict, and understanding that and dealing with that and being able to kind of manage that. How do you feel about those kind of pillars? And even though there is no formula, as we've all agreed, there is no recipe, no quick solve, but does that make sense to you in terms of tools to be closer to your peace more consistently, which is, I think, all we can do in the end?
Sure. Okay. So this is how we'll answer that question. If both of you do it because you cannot help but do it, in other words, it's just something that speaks within you where you cannot help but show gratitude and show appreciation and everything else, then that's fine. But if we now say, well, if you do that, there will be X waiting for you on the other side, then it is ineffective. So it has to come from the individual, from a point of sincerity. Because if all of us sit here now, say to everybody, be grateful, and be kind. Now what everybody listening in will do and be like, okay, so now I need to do be kind. And then they will be kind, and then they will wait for the reward at the end of being kind, which won't happen. But because both of you, like, that's something that is just so intrinsic within you, that it's a desire within you to be kind. Nobody told you to be kind. Nobody, you didn't read a book on how to be kind. This is just who you are. Then it becomes perfectly fine. The other point, what I would say to that is, it is about desire. It is about look. If I said to you now, there's a snake underneath your chair right now for both of you, okay? Both of you are not going to pick up your hand and ask me, Norwyn, is there a technique or a way in order to run away from the snake? Is there a book I can read or a YouTube video I can watch? You're not going to do that. You are going to get the hell out of there. No matter what you have to do, you'll jump on the table, you'll run through the window, you'll do whatever you need to do. But if you stop and ask me, how do I run away from the snake? It's too late. You will be bit. The only piece of information you needed there is the awareness that there's a snake underneath your chair. What you did once you became aware of that, now that's sincere behavior. That didn't come from me. It didn't come from a book. It didn't come from a guru. It didn't come from this, 5-step plan. You, in that moment, recognized what you needed to do once you became aware that there's a snake underneath your chair. That is truth. That is sincere. And oftentimes that is then gets you somewhere. So again, to my point, if being kind is already within the human being, then they will do it anyway. They would not need to be reminded to be kind or to show gratitude or any of those things, because that's honest and sincere. I think there's a question coming there, Jace.
No, there's not a question. There's just thank you. You know what it did for me is it just positioned, because I want to share this as much as possible, and I want to, like you, create pathways that people can follow to find greater self. But I don't want it to be, which I think the worst sentence that we're doing at the moment is, work hard and you will be successful. And then I'm like, I think that
100%.
assuming that everybody with gratitude, acceptance, and perspective is going to be happy. There's a layer below work hard that goes, you got to work hard, you got to work smart, you got to work in the right directions, in the right spaces at the right time.
Yes.
You've got to show up harder than everybody else at the right time. There's got to be a lot of luck involved, and the luck will. There you go. That's exactly so. So I don't want it to be the proverbial. We once did and this was loudest for me. We were doing a campaign with Brand South Africa called Play Your Part, and we were talking to some kids in Galvindale who come from an area just like Eldorado Park, very similar to us. And we said, just, work hard. And if you work harder than everybody else, you're going to make it out of here. And a kid pulled me aside afterwards and he said, hey, man, I don't think that you're right. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, you said if I'm willing to work harder than everybody else, then all my dreams are going to come true. And I don't think that that's true. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, no, well, my dad is the hardest working man I've ever met. He works 2 jobs and we still broke. The drug dealers on the corner are not broke. So what you're trying to tell me to do just doesn't make sense from where I sit. And I think you guys have missed it. And it made me think that, hard work is not enough. So just like having the idea of gratitude, the idea of acceptance, the idea of perspective, that's not enough. It still comes down to you and what you do with that idea consistently, and how you manage your expectations and manage what your perception of the reward is supposed to be. Because you just make yourself more sad if you go, but I was grateful the whole day and I'm still fucking sad and depressed. You're just going to feel even worse. You know what I mean? So if you think it's a tablet, if you think it's a grandpa, it's not a grandpa, this thing. It's, okay.
No, and I think the difficult thing is that this is what we try and explain in our conversations with people when we do the live performance and we're on stage. We also try and let people know that we're not giving you the solution to your happiness. We're just giving you our perspective on what we've learned based off of the information we've received from our podcast, where we have our guests on who give us this information. And I think that essentially people are so desperately looking for their happiness, their peace, their joy, whatever you might call it, that they miss the part where we go, this is not a solution. Because we're looking for a solution. We want, because that's the way the world works now as well, is that everything is now. I want it now and I must have it now. I've done what needs to be done. Like you said, put my 5 steps in and I'm still broke. What's going on? You guys told me.
Just one last bombshell, like maybe I can drop quickly if there's enough time when it comes to happiness.
Now carry on, bro.
I'll leave you with this, okay? I will share with you the secret location to happiness, okay? And all your listeners now, their ears are going to start rising up and waiting for the answer to this. But when I share this with you, 99% of people will not go there, okay? But I will explain it to you regardless, okay? The secret location to happiness is found by abandoning the need to have it in the first place. Let me say this again. The secret location to happiness is found by abandoning the need to have it in the first place. Because when there is no need to be happy, one is free. And when one is free, one can absolutely live life and engage and experiment and do what they want to without the expectation to be happy. There's a lot to unpack there, but I just thought let me just drop that bombshell, and maybe on another time we can sort of unpack what I just said there. But
no, that's the best time to advertise all of your books now. Tell them.
Look, thank you for that. Look, what I will say is that again, I'm not in the book selling business. I'm in the idea sharing business, so it's not really important to me. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of my books is not for everyone. It's a very hard read because, I'm not prescribing a way to be happy. I speak about truthful things like hard work, as you saw, was one of them. And hard work, as we understand it, is a scam. Because as you just said, Joyce, how hard work is positioned is that if we work hard, we will have X. And that is not true. The evidence does not back that up. So there's a lot more to
hard work is a scam. I love that.
Hard work is an absolute scam because, like, the thing is, if I told both of you, okay, tomorrow morning, if you are not in the office, let's say there's an office, by 5 o'clock, otherwise you will lose everything that you have. I promise you, none of you will have to work hard in order to be there at 5. Okay, you would do it because it is life or death. You would do it because if you weren't there, you would lose everything that you have. And so that would not be hard work. You did it because you desire it that much. It's not hard work. Then it's easy because you have everything on the line. From the outside perspective, it might look like hard work for other people, but for you, because the desire is so strong, it's not hard work at all. So yeah, hard work is a bit of a scam. But you can find my books on my social media profiles. It's called A Wellness Illusion. Can't really see it there, but it's breaking free from the greatest scams in history. And some of those scams are happiness, purpose, joy, hard work, love. And I sort of break down, in my observation over a decade being in this field, how I think all those things are ineffective, and we have been sold an incorrect path to those things. So if you just you can check them out online. You go to my profiles; the links are there. That you, if you want to read that, you can have a look at that. But I just want to say, you guys, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pity because it feels like 5 minutes, but it's almost been over an hour now. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
Over an hour. I can't believe it. Time flew. That is crazy. Dude, thank you so much for joining us. What a wonderful, insightful, beautiful conversation. And thank you for sharing. And like Jay said, being honest and open. It's I hope that this helps those who are watching.
Happiness is a scam.
No, hard
Happiness, the way it's which positioned is a scam, but it does exist. It's in a different path, not the one that we think.
I love that, and I want to wish everybody watching that now that you have the GPS coordinates, that you go and find it. The easiest way to achieve your happiness is to not want it in the first place, not need it in the first place.
Because it's need, it's expectation. That's all it is.
Yeah. Norwyn, thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing. And I think what I want to thank you for most of all is taking the time to figure out ways out of the darkness and deal with the darkness and what the darkness actually is. I think one of the most positive things that's come from today is just being able to comfortably admit that nothing exists the way you think it does, but everything exists the way you think it does. And I don't know how else to articulate that. So from us at the Happiness Economy, Norwyn K, everybody go and follow him on social media. Just give us your handles again there quickly.
It's just Norwyn K, so it's my name, NORWYNK, and I'm all over the show with those handles. So yeah.
Norwyn K on everything.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching or listening, everybody. Salute and away.